well here. What would be great is to get a sense of who is already in care and has, comes and has care, either here at the clinic or at another clinic. If you could just put your hand up. Okay, great. And then put your hand up if you haven't had care. No, great. Okay, so that's really good, because the main aim of the talk today is to help you understand what's going on for you when you're on the bench, and give you some tools to meet the care that's coming up for you, so that you can enhance the effect it's having on your body and in your life. And so, especially with network chiropractic, so I'm going to be talking about network chiropractic as well as traditional chiropractic. So traditional chiropractic, my dad's a chiropractor, so I was used to having care as a chiropractor for my dad when I was a baby. And it was the manual adjustments that quite a few of you have on the spine to adjust the areas where there may be fixations and to help the nerve flow through the body. I discovered network chiropractic when I was at uni. My best friend Abby was studying network chiropractic, and I remember the experience of getting on the bench and not just being adjusted, but just very light contacts, and my body almost being invited to respond to the care. And it felt really different. And so from that sense of curiosity, I then went and studied network chiropractic and have kind of carried on my path of learning through that. So that was about 18 years ago I had my first, or maybe 19 years ago I had my first entrainment. And so entrainment is the term for when you're lying on the bench, especially in the group sessions, and having these contacts on your spine and that invitation for your body to respond to the care and to integrate the contacts. So traditional chiropractic is all about the spine, the brain and the spinal cord, and freeing up fixations that happen from life stress, be that physical stress like the traumas that you may have been through. That could be car accidents, postural issues, could be knocks and falls, as well as emotional traumas that you may have been through, where your body anchors that tension into your neurophysiology, into your brain and your body, so that it can affect your decisions and your choices as what situations you put yourself into after that trauma. And so there's a lot of research around that at the moment, and lots of conversations of putting light on what is it to have this body, what is it to navigate our lives and all the experiences we have, and especially when we have experiences that start to affect our behavior in a negative way. It's all good when we're responding to life with our open hearts and feeling really flexible and feeling really free. But when we're feeling pain, when we're feeling restriction, when our emotional range is getting narrow, or especially tipping into being maybe negative or limiting us, then the questions naturally arise of what's going on here, what's going on in my body, and what can I do to help myself be as well as I possibly can, not just in my body but in my life and in my relationships, so that I can enjoy this life ultimately. And so the spine, is this just incredible interface between your internal environment and your external environment. And there's an opportunity through the spine to allow the messages from your environment to directly help you respond in a way that's innately beneficial. But when you have areas of fixation, which often you might see it by somebody who may hold themselves, their chest may be held down, their head may be held down, the defense posturing. And put your hand up if you've heard the word defensive posture. It's a classic, rounding of the shoulders, head forward, tightening of the low back area, and kind of sagging down through the pelvic girdle. And it coincides with having been through a lot of stress in life. So, or being in postures that are really not ideal. So they say that sugar to the, that sitting to the spine, mind your head. Thanks, Chris. They say that sitting to the spine is like sugar to the teeth. You know, so hours and hours of sitting just really don't do the spine much good at all. And especially if we're in one posture for, you know, a half hour more at a time. So that's something to take away, is just have a look at that in your life. Where are you spending lots of time sitting, and how can you increase the flexibility and the mobility? Because that defense posture, as well as it being sitting related, it's also stress related. So when we have stress in response to situations in our life, we tend to tighten our jaw, tighten our occiput, our traps, and go into either a freeze, so we're literally physically tightening up, and also, or if we're going into fight or flee, the blood's going into the muscles in the legs, into the shoulders, so we've literally got the fuel there to take the action that's needed. So that's why often when we're feeling nervous, as I am right now talking to you guys, I can feel, you know, more energy in my hands and a bit more clamminess. The breathing can get a bit more shallow, the heart rate gets a bit faster, and also the glucose becomes available. So in terms of insulin resistance and pre-diabetes and all these factors, stress is a really key thing. And, you know, stress is really fine and really actually a kind of healthy response to challenging situations. And I think, you know, I see in our culture there's a real sort of down on stress attitude of like stress being bad, avoid situations that bring on stress or anxiety. And I don't think that's necessarily the best approach. You know, a lot of these the situations we put ourselves in that are challenging for us, they almost like tone up. They call us to, you know, use that energy, that visceral energy to speak or act or direct ourselves to be engaged with our environment. So there's a real balance with how we're navigating our nervous system. And so on the bench, when you're having some care, it's like your environment, you're here for your body, and there is just this opportunity to start to notice how your energy is navigating through your spine, through your brain, how your body is responding with its breath, and also opening up strategies of sound, of movement, so that if you're in an environment where something, say, stressful is coming up, rather than defaulting into the brainstem reaction, which is our primitive brain. The brainstem is at the back of the brain here, and that's, you know, our reptilian brain. So it's the part of our brain that we've inherited from, you know, where we've evolved from. But we now have this great frontal cortex, which is what makes us human. And it's that part that has the capacity to see the bigger picture, to feel more connected, to feel innately safe, regardless of the circumstances that are arising. And when you're on the bench and you're breathing more deeply, there's the blood flow can go from being more focused around the brainstem to involving the front of the brain. And then you start to be able to access some of that bound tension that could have been laid down from a trauma perhaps you had when you were 2 years old, that you may not have had any conscious memory around, but your body is you've had your body since you were in utero. It's the same body, even though the cells are changing every year. The nervous system is the piece. It's like the architecture that ties it all together. And so, you know, you want to know that really intimately. You want to understand how do you breathe when you're really angry or wound up by something or someone. How are you doing that? How are you doing that in your body? And what I find with having the care on the bench, and I learned this as I had networked myself. So I went and studied network in Sweden first, and then Italy. It was always in these gorgeous locations. It was awful. And so I'd have a lot of care, because this is the great thing about being a chiropractic student, is that you have lots of care. But the not so great thing is it's with other people who don't necessarily know what they're doing. But with network, I had more and more care, and then I would go on weekends there would be like 200 people in a room with 30 incredible network chiropractors, and we would all have care and entrainments. And the entrainment effect is that it's a bit like pendulum clocks. If we had the wall covered in pendulum clocks, the pendulums, they could all start off out of sync, but over time they would synchronize to be swinging together. And the same if you have a house of women living together, their menstrual cycle may start off all out of sync, but over time of months of them living together, they tend to synchronize. And so when we're having the group sessions, so here we'll see 4 people at a time, there's an entrainment effect that happens, where somebody maybe who's very new to care, who hasn't had much input of this kind into their nervous system, they can learn from somebody who else is in the room who may have had a lot of care, and their system could be in level 3 strategies, and before you know it, they're oscillating together. And so I just see the progress for people through their care is a lot more by that effect. And so when I was learning, and then after that, you would be in a room, like I said, with 200 people, and it suddenly lifts off your expectations and your sense of what's possible with your own spine. And so even though a contact could be very light and gentle just on one point called the gateway, and these gateways are points where the spinal cord attaches to the spinal column. So there are ligaments that hold the spinal cord in place. And through experiences we've been through in our life, it can affect the tone of the spinal cord. And so when we're checking heel tension, when you lie on the bench, we'll often push against your feet. We're checking for the spinal cord tension through the heel tension. So it can be a real clue if somebody's got a lot of resistance on the left heel. It can be a clue that there's left cord tension. And so what Donny developed and learned over years, Donny is the founder of Network Chiropractic, he started off as a traditional chiropractor and learned lots of other techniques. And that's the thing within chiropractic, is that there are so many different techniques that you can learn, like kinesiology or craniosacral technique or sacro-occipital technique. There's so many sort of branches you can take within it. And he had studied a lot of them, and he had a patient on the bench, and he checked out what was going on, checked the leg length discrepancy, checked posture, checked for cervical syndrome, and then he could see, okay, this is the area that needs adjusting. So he was about to do a manual adjustment to move that vertebrae. And he got called out of the office, and he'd taken a contact, like touched the area, and then got called out, and then came back in and rechecked, and all the parameters had changed. So it got him thinking, less is more. If we, if we can do as little as possible into the nervous system, and the nervous system can learn as much to respond, then that's better for this person's nervous system. They're walking away, not dependent on me and my ability to fix them or correct them or align them, but they are learning how, there's that point there that's needing some attention. What happens if I move? What happens if I breathe into it? And then when you do that, then you could then it's like, oh wow, I need to cry, or I need to laugh. And creating a permission field on the bench, a safety, a place where you're like, okay, anything is allowed. That's all the nervous system needs. It just wants this invitation to feel safe. And it is far more intelligent than our kind of, mental constructs can ever fathom. We're self-organizing mechanisms. We're just we're not machines. We're just so much more than that. And so, do you want to sit on the floor? Would that be more comfortable? Are you happy?
I've actually been sitting a lot today.
Okay, great. You can take the dance. And so, as I started to learn this care within my own body, first of all, my need for traditional chiropractic adjustments reduced down. And I found I started to respond to my life in a different way, because the energy was flowing through my body in a much more organized, efficient way. And that's what I see with people that I'm taking care of. As they journey through the care, they come and they share things that are happening for them that are unexpected. And for example, I had a girl just recently come in and she's like, I just feel different. She's like, I'm not agitated by things. She said, especially with my husband. And she was also saying, and this feels so good, I'm really afraid, what if I can't keep this going, But the amazing thing, when you're on the bench and you're learning about how to breathe and move and respond to your own energy of your body, is that you're learning it. Just like you would learn to drive a car or ride a bike, these strategies are anchoring into your neurophysiology. And so even if I wasn't ever to see that woman again, I know her system has learned something about herself and how to be. That she, in our everyday kind of often mundane life, we don't get the opportunities to actually create a bit of a sacred space to connect in with our body, to check in, okay, how am I and what needs tending to? And so you just never know what's going to show up in any one session. You just never know. You could come in going, I've got a sore low back, and that's the priority. And as a practitioner, we just naturally want to help people feel better. Like there's that, I just want you to be out of pain. And so, someone lies on the bench and they've got a sore low back, you can check in and you can find, there's fixations here, there's muscle tension, there's leg length discrepancy, we can adjust this. But with the network strategies, if you take a contact that's very gentle on an area of ease and openness, then the nervous system may want to start to address that itself, than me coming and adjusting that away. And what I found is, as people have care and learn through the care, is that I can't even put it into words just to see what can happen. You can take a contact and then their whole system unravels, and it's really hard to put into words actually. I wonder if there's someone here actually who's had a bit of network care, can share. Could you share a little bit?
I've had 3 treatments.
It's been with Ish?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it wasn't what I was expecting, but it certainly has been delightful. And I do feel a shift. Yeah. I don't hold the tension that I once held as much, as long. I have found some kind of I suppose, I don't know what to say, inner strength, would we say? But it's probably a compound of all the different maneuvers. But it feels like I'm approaching a better landing place. The thing is, I'm seeing Mish now weekly, and when it gets to about day 5 or 6, I start to notice that old pattern that is kind of the resistance pattern is starting to be present again. And so then I know, okay, well, I'm going to see her in 2 more days. So that's been my delight.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, what happens when you're on the bench and you're having some care, there are points, like I said, called gateways. So when you're lying down, you'll have areas that are speaking to you of like, oh, this is an area that I just really love her to get into today. And often it's when our life force is a little bit reduced that our body's not able to tend to these parts where we might get pain in areas or we might get fixations. Ooh, just mind that mirror. And so what we're doing with the gateways, with those points, like I said, that are attached to the spine through the anchor points, the contact is so gentle that it's almost like you almost can't, it's like you have to go, oh, what point is she actually touching? It's like your brain has to find it. And it's also respectful and not putting anything on. It's almost like calling you to the area. Can you relate, for those of you who've had some network? And so from that contact, then if you can allow whatever your lead strategy is, so whether that is breath, movement, or energy, and these are the lead strategies that we're working with, that we're really wanting to kind of amp up in your nervous system. It's like, when I'm feeling comfortable, when I'm feeling really tired, what's happening with my breath, what's happening with my movement, and also sound. And so when you take that contact and you're drawing the life force of the area, then the area that may be tight and sore, there's energy in there. There's tension in there. So you're wanting to direct the energy as fuel from that area of pain or disconnection to the area called the gateway to open that gateway up. So it's almost calling energy to it. And then as you develop the gateways start oscillating together. So Amir, you've had some because you probably had the most care of anyone in this room from having trained you the other day. It would be, I don't know if there's anything you feel to share about your experience of seeing Fiona up in London.
Well, I came based on recommendation, and this is the most theory I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what was going on. So it's been very interesting to hear you so far, because it felt more like magic, let's say, before. Like, I get this and my body seems to respond and adjust, and breath starts to open up, and different ideas seem to come forward, and I've noticed I might then respond in life in ways that seem better at some level. So insights seem to come through in life, and then that would become increasingly intriguing, and I'd come back, and then my body would start to respond in different ways that continue to surprise me and kind of find fascinating. So yeah, in a way I've initially maybe come in to get something out of it, and now I kind of come, it's kind of an interesting thing in and of itself, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you, Amir. That's really well shared. You're going to go, oh guys, thanks so much for coming. Are you going to acro yoga? Good, enjoy. Mind your head, Thomas, you go in there. Yeah, so the gateways, as they can access the fuel, and this is nice to kind of fill in the pieces, and there's something lovely about coming in, getting on the bench and having no idea what's happening and just being there, especially if your mental field is quite strong, especially if you really like to understand things and get into the detail. That can sometimes feel like it can get in the way a little bit. Or if you come in with lots of expectations, that can also be like, oh, what's my body wanting to do and what am I trying to make it do? But it's so nice if you come along, you're just like, okay, there's just some magic happening here, and then your body's just able to fly in the ways it does. And so, yeah, the gateways, they pick up the fuel, they draw the fuel into them, and the gateways start oscillating. So the first thing we see on the bench is a breath wave. This full breath wave through the length of the spine, right down to the coccyx, right up to the occiput. Then you know that there's enough safety in the nervous system that person is able to really be there, show up fully on the bench for themselves, if that makes sense. before the breath wave is established, there's often still a lot of defensive strategies in the body. There's still a lot of hardness and resistance and maybe fears from the past, fears about the future, that are kind of clouding the freedom of their energy in the body. So that breath wave brings safety. That's level 1. Once that's established, the gateways can start to oscillate and play together a little bit more. And so you'll find there's a bit more movement on the bench between 2 points. And the more the gateways can play and move, the more they can access that fuel, that energy that's otherwise bound into the tissues, keeping you in one position. So that energy, especially through the thoracic cage, starts to move. And the gateways are around the cervical spine, around the sacrum. And so then we move into transform energy. So this is level 2, and transform energy is quite exciting because you're like, wow, things are starting to happen. What do I want to do with my life? If I'm not doing that, what now can come in? And so that's the sort of entrance where I'll have someone come in and they say, I just went home and just cleared my whole closet out that's been doing my head in for years, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I just said, enough of that. I'm going to sort that out. So what goes alongside the network is the breathing exercises, the 12 stages of healing. So just put your hand up if you've heard me mention this. Okay, a few of you have, yeah. So the 12 stages of healing is a book written by Donny, and there's 12 breathing exercises that go alongside the care. And so often you'll find there might be one part of, level within the care that's just creating a bit of resistance that's difficult for you to move past. So then the breathing exercise can come in and can help shift that. So the breath work helps the perception, the ideas, the beliefs, the thoughts around things. The network helps the structure. So we're working through the structure, through the spine, and the breath work shifts the perception. When you address these 2 parts, then behavior changes. So as Amir said, then you start kind of navigating your life and you're like, oh, I'm just going to respond to that thing completely differently to how I normally would. And it almost sort of surprises you. And you shared a lot of that for you, Jade. Of like, I'm not going to just go along with that thing. And it feels quite natural. It's because you can start to feel the feedback loops of when you're maybe saying yes because it's what you learned to do, whether you learn to be a pleaser or to be loved by saying yes or find connection. And you start to hear your own feedback loops of like, oh no, that's just a no, no. And it can have a ricochet through your life of like responding differently to how people expect you to be. But ultimately the energy is all flowing more. So the energy is flowing more. There's something you just can't question about it because it's like, oh, this person is more well. And when you're clear in yourself, it gives everyone else the opportunity to get clear in themselves. And it's a real kindness, actually. And so that transform energy of level 2 on the bench, how that looks, there tends to be more movement. You'll be on your back a bit more. So we start off where you're on your tummy, and then sometimes I'll invite you onto your back, and sometimes with your head down the other end of the bench. And that's where we're really getting those oscillating gateways to start oscillating with the heart gateway. And so the fuel from the spine starts to want to extend forward into the heart gateway. And so they start being ruled by here rather than the cortex, which is, kind of almost from a limited perspective. And so then we move into level 3 of care, and that's where the expanded energy, the experience of it is more wordless and less kind of self-identified and much more expansive. And that's, when I've been on gates before and having a lot of care where you'll just be carried off the bench. But when you've had that experience, you shift from what your nervous system maybe had learned as its whole sort of framework. It opens the potential of that up, and it's using everything you've been through, all the experiences you've been through that are in your body to take you there. So the wisdom of them can come through the entrainment. any questions or anything to share?
So many questions.
Yeah.
That last bit you just said, I'm just like, whoa, hang on. Like,
Yeah.
everything, what did you just say? Everything you've ever...
Everything you've ever been through, in particular the experiences that have molded your perception of your environment, have created your filter, and the defense strategies, you know, like those experiences where you go, oh, especially in your early years where we don't have the kind of adult brain in place and the frontal cortex, we sort of anchor those in as traumas that affect how we behave. And so when you're being trained and the gateways are opening up, they can start to feel the resonance of what's discordant with areas of ease that are open and expansive through the spinal cord, and then the energy moves through those gateways, so it transforms those experiences. And so, you know, because posture, especially the posture that's kind of built up through here, you know, often I'll say to people, know, oh, what good posture is, but they can't actually hold it. Their bodies are just like forced there. And they'll try and like, okay, I'll be good. That's all fuel in there. And so when I get on the bench and I have some care and I'm in there, I'm like, oh God, there's the, oh yeah, you know, you're claiming it, you're moving it, you're breathing into it. And there's an actual wave that develops. So a somatopsychic wave that you see on the spine as people entrain through the care.
The word alchemy is coming to me. It's like turning the thing that is holding us back, or the thing that is not very wanted,
aligned, right?
into gold, into like, which is, I had that experience in a more psycho-spiritual inner world, but hearing it in this kind of, for me, as I'm hearing it, my language, my somatic language, like a more kind of cellular level, energetic cellular level. It's like it feels like the same thing, but happening right here in the nervous system. Similarly, it's really helpful for me to hear you speak about it, because I've just been lying face down going, holy shit, like what? What's going on here? Something's going on here. I love not knowing as well, because I can feel it. But yeah, I'm very excited that you're doing this work up here in the high street.
Yeah.
All those other people don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's great. On Tuesday, the market night, when the really bad band plays outside the Seven Stars. You know, combining with our ohms in here is use the music. Yeah, you know, as it's interesting for me as my journey in chiropractic, I've oscillated from defaulting into very mainstream chiropractic because it feels easy and it works. You know, people feel better, and often people come to chiropractic because they're in pain. You know, they've got physical, you know, disconnect somewhere. So, and we can adjust it, and it's like, network is much more complex, and it's a lot more to hold in the room. It's almost like I have to step up in my being to be able to do it well. And having had kids, like I've got 3 kids, and what it is to be pregnant, to then give birth, and then be having sleepless nights and breastfeeding, and feeling where my body has gone, sometimes being able to hold and sometimes not really. Anyway, now I've had all my kids and I'm not having any more, which is great to say. And Mish is the new chiropractor who's joined us at the clinic, and she graduated a year after me, and we've had a really similar journey of like traditional chiropractic, worked in really busy clinics, but always had network ourselves, and always gone on lots of seminars and practice network. Like one clinic I worked in, they weren't really into network, and they were very traditional. And so I would just take some contacts, like on this, you know, like not make it explicit, it was, you know, I'm just taking a contact. And I was doing this in this one clinic. I just remember this moment so well. Because I was just practicing. I'd been on my first seminar in Sweden, and it was an open plan clinic in Plymouth. And I had this man was lying on the bench, and he was Polish. I still remember him. He's now moved back to Poland. And he was in phase 4. So there are 5 phases of core tension. Have you heard about this, Amir? The patterns that.
I only know 2 of them.
Okay, so this is really a really interesting part of network. There are 5 patterns of spinal cord tension that show up on the bench. We all have these patterns, these positions our spinal cord can be in. We often have one we default into, and the more we can move through these different movements and patterns of cord tension, the more flexible we can be with ourselves and with others and in our lives. So there's 5 phases, and phase 4 is, so someone will come in, their legs will be even, and it's very much a cervical phase. So those are the gateways we're trying to access. And it's the behavior of phase 4 is when someone's maybe very much in their head. They could be a real talker, like they'll come in and they'll talk, and trying to get them just to lie down and breathe is a challenge. And they'll be very articulate, they'll be able to like explain exactly what's going on for them in great detail, but they won't be feeling very much because it's all very much up here. And so this guy was in a phase 4, and I could see, I was like, oh, this is a phase 4, this is, you know, because I was just learning it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take the phase 4 contact, you know, so I just took the contact. And then I just went to the next person. I thought, well, give him 5 minutes and see what happens. And he just started. I was working something, and then I saw his shoulders shaking, and then he started laughing, like giggling, and then so, you know, that laughter that just like where your wheels fall off. And it was totally unexpected, because it was like a straightforward chiropractic clinic, not emotional stuff. And then the laughter turned to just sobbing, and then the whole room was kind of laughing, and we were all like, and then he just sat up, and it was probably a half hour, 40 minutes later before he could actually speak. And I didn't do anything else on him. I just took this one contact. And it was so affirming for me, because there was a part of me that thought maybe this is all just a bit woo-woo. You know, my dad's a traditional chiropractor. He makes bones move. You know, you go home and it's like, you're done. You're like, oh, that's better, Dad. But here I am doing a contact. And that man was like, whatever you did, I want you to do that again. And then when I left that clinic, he sought out where I was, and he would come up to Totnes and have care here. And you know, and he was covered in tattoos, lifted loads of weights, was like kind of rah, but he'd get on the bench and just turn into a puppy. It was amazing. And so it's exciting what happens with network, and it feels actually a much more of a service for people, and as much as I still, you know, straightforward chiropractic is great, but just like the magic that can come in because you're sort of inviting it in, and also you're working with the ease of the body. You know, the gateways, like I remember how it was first described to me by Donny Epstein. It was an amazing network chiropractor, and he taught me my first seminar. And I think it was the skill of his teaching that really turned me to network, because he just taught it so well. And I remember what he said is like the gateway, he said, you know you're on a gateway because he said it will feel like it's almost like a kiss. It's like that sweet spot on the spine where you're just like melting into a point. That's what the gateways are, which is so different to finding fixations and trying to, you know, adjust them away. And so getting to know what those sweet spots are in your spine and working with the strategies you already had, like everyone who's here has got their own journey that they've had within their body, with their mind, that they can bring to the bench. You know, some really incredible skills that you have with your chi and how you move your body. But we can only work, we can enhance that. Yeah.
So as when we're being taken care of, are you suggesting that we actively seek those gateways as you're working on it, that we like, and if so, how like what is it that we need to be looking for, and how do we work with it as you are doing what you're doing?
Well, I would say just having questions like that is all it takes. You come to the bench with your curiosity and your desire to know yourself more intimately. If you have that, taking a contact in the gateway, it will all come, and it won't be contrived, it won't feel forced. As we do more network, so Mish, as I said, has joined, and we're about to go deep with our network training. So we're all going off to do lots more seminars, myself and Mish, for the next 2 years. We've just both decided, actually, this is how we want to work. And so it's a sort of our commitment to ourselves and to you guys of like, actually, we're going to really be kind of turning the volume up in our network standard. So what you'll find, Miguel, is that more people in the room will be bringing the energy in that will make you really obvious to you, this is what my body wants to do. Clear days, so we do clear days maybe every 6 months, and that's where 12 to 16 people will come on a day and have back-to-back entrainments and SRI like breath work, and on those days it's a day of silence, but you get to see other people being entrained. You have you do the 12 stages of breathing as well. It's a day where I really find people work their strategies out, because you're not kind of going from having half hour on the bench back to your life, which can be a lot to integrate and to kind of dive as deep as maybe you're ready to go. And so these are little things and ways that we'll be kind of putting it out there to support you to just get as much out of it as you can. But I think also as a practitioner, I can call you out. I can be like, okay, stretch here, don't move your legs, actually stretch your thoracics, and teach you what I'm expecting to see. Because when we're working the phases of core tension, so for example, phase 5 is C5 coccyx, which is a real extreme level of spinal cord tension. C5 coccyx is where your cord is kind of stretched, your lower cervical, and your coccyx is under, and you actually feel a lot of high tension in your body. And you can often feel it when you're sitting next to someone who's got that coccyx tension, because you feel a little bit like, oh, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I, there's just that in the room. So when you're stretching C5 coccyx, I would be asking that person, lift the coccyx up, breathe into the coccyx, so they get the stretch. And if you're really stretching that gateway and you're coming into level 2, they might actually make a scream. The sound that could come out would be like, really could be quite a charge. But the gift of clearing C5 coccyx is just such generosity, and they're the people who create charities in the world and move mountains, and nothing's in the way, because that energy is freed up. So, okay, I'm not a victim. Wow. And so it's partly depending on what phase you're in, determines how active you may be on the bench, and also what your strategies are, because the energy may be your lead strategy, and that may mean that you are really quite still on the bench and you don't move a lot, and it's not very obvious on the outside. For others, movement might be their strategy. Movement is mine. I move a lot on the bench. Sound. Yeah.
I guess I was asking because when you speak about gateways, it's that what I hear is that there are actual, like, as in, Chinese medicine, that there are actual meridian points. I hear with gateways that there are actual points in your body that are gateways.
Yeah, you're right.
And so my question was related to that. As I'm on the bench, is there like particular places along the spine that I should be focusing on, or is it, but what I hear in your answer is that not really, or not necessarily, just like relax and let and go with the experience?
I would say somewhere in between the two. You know, especially when there are points that I'll be taking that I will be contacting the gateway, and I will be wanting your attention to go to those points as the primary areas we're working in that session. And so it's hard to explain because it's so experiential. Because you don't also want to be limited, like I'm just going to focus on this point, when you know, because you're harnessing the energy of the body, and so you want that part of the brain to not be there, and at the same time, kind of working those gateways. But it should become more obvious as those gateways develop. Yeah. So those gateways will actually be talking to you as well. Yeah. So it's somewhere between the two. Yeah.
So you're saying taking a point.
Taking a contact,
Taking a contact.
yeah.
And could you explain that a little bit? I don't think I quite understand the taking bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, the language might not be completely accurate, but what it is, when you're on the bench and we check what the position of your legs, look at your posture, look at your breathing, looking at the position of your neck, we can work out from that what phase of spinal cord tension you're in on that day, okay? From that, we determine, okay, these are the gateways, and there's, you know, on average about 4 gateways per phase. So then you take a contact, so you're feeling the gateway to see if it's available. If it's like, oh, okay, this is a yes point, and there is more things involved, but I won't go into that. And then the taking contact is you're stretching the tissue away from the gateway, stretching it away to open the gateway up, and then coming in with your thumb through the field, through the body, the energy of the field around it, through soul, mental, emotional, life force, coming into the gateway and taking contact, and then coming out into the field at a certain point. Now, how deep you go into that contact will be determined by what level of care you're working on. Whether you're going really deep into this or whether it's just in-out, which to begin with, it's just in-out. And also how far off the body you are and how far you come, because you don't see, because you're lying on your tummies. Where I'm coming out, sometimes you might come in and you're like high and in like really open space. So I'm going to come into soul energy and bring that through. Maybe your life force needs a bit of energy. So there's so many layers that are kind of woven into what contact you take, when, how deep you go, how far out you come, and how responsive you are on the bench. Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's 5 stages, and you're saying we can jump between the stages,
The phases.
On any different day. So any day
Yeah.
you could come on a different phase.
Yeah. Though I often see that there's a mask. Someone will come in with a classic, I'm fine, which is a classic like face forward, you know?
Okay.
And then so when you work that out, as I get to know you, I'm like, oh, that's just their mask. I'm not going to keep addressing that.
Yeah.
Let's look for the phase that's not that and go there.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like the pelvic phase, that's phase 3, which is, you know, often if people kind of, there's real pelvic issues, imbalances going on there, and that can be where our sense of self, who we are and who we innately know ourselves to be, is in conflict with the culture we're in and the expectations of those around us. So that could be the family we were born into, it could be the family we live with now with our friends, or it could be our actual culture. You know, like I'll have being Irish, living in the UK, I'll have an innate like phase 3 that just needs to be addressed every now and again. But I'm about to go to the rugby on Saturday, so I'm sure that'll sort that out. Go on, Ireland! So yeah, that's just a little snippet. But then phase 2 is a really interesting phase. So when someone's on the bench in a phase 3, there'll be a lot of pelvic movement. Like, oh, because it can be really frustrating when you got a phase 3, because you're just like keep getting like having to be like a certain way that's just not you. So it's like a lot of frustration, but you get that phase 3 energy moving, and you're and then it's like there's like a much more sense of abundance. I'm getting going now, guys. It's probably time for me to go home. But I'll just share what phase 2 is. So phase 2 is a very much an upper cervical phase, and it tends to be fear about the future, and trust is the main thing. That's you know, and I think I saw someone this evening, and I was trying to address their mask of what was coming in. They were a pelvic phase, and they were just like, there was nothing happening for them on the bench. Like, and you know, you can tell if somebody's connecting and things are happening or not. And she was just there, and I know she's got developed strategies, and I was like, and I was even trying to get some fuel going, and it was just like not going anywhere. And then I was like, I think there's a phase 2 in here. And I took the phase 2, and she was just like, like kind of, her body was saying like, thank you for like seeing me and letting me go to where I need to go. And she's about to move house, and you know, it's like a big thing. She's in this potential anticipatory step about. So it just made sense that there was a phase 2, which is all about planning for the future and trusting or not trusting.
Are they sequential? Do you work through?
They don't tend to go like in a linear fashion. They can kind of jump around, but it is good when someone's working through the first level of care, like in your initial intensive. I try and look for each of the different phases, so I'm working through them all and not just doing 1 or 2, which can sometimes be how the body resents. And so you have to sort of really look out for there's a phase 5 here. Let's just go to that C5 coccyx, because it doesn't show up that often. Yeah. So I think the take homes from this evening is that, like, really play out when you're on the bench. You know, let yourself explore and get creative with your spine. It helps other people, so don't feel like, oh, if I make a load of noise here, it's just going to put other people off. Good if it does, you know. If they've got a real reaction, that's their fuel, you know. It's like, that's what life is, and that's why when you're in the group sessions, there's opportunity, because it's often in relationship that our crap comes up. You know, it's like we get triggered. It's fine if we're all like hanging from a glass, you know, ball, not having any life, then we feel really calm. But it's life is where things get agitated. And so if you're on the bench in an open plan session and somebody's really winding you up, then how is your body doing that? You know, use that fuel to transform that, and hopefully I'll be able to pick up the phase of core tension that's showing up that's resonating with. And then you'll probably find it really funny when you actually shift that. Has it made sense, what I've shared? I don't plan these talks, so I just sort of talk and hope some sort of sense comes out of it. Have you got any questions?
I just have one more question, and that is, where did this come from? I know you said that, there's the regular
chiropractic.
But when did this get started?
So this is the sort of brainchild of Donny Epstein, and it started in the 1980s, and he's been developing it ever since, and he's carried on developing it. And he's shifted, and that's why I'm quite excited to go back and do a lot more training, because I think he's changed a lot of the things he does, and so it's good to learn. But yeah, Donny Epstein is the founder of it, but it's based on a lot of some of the assessments come from other chiropractic techniques that have been developed over the past century. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Claire.
You're welcome.
It's really useful to understand in my head what my body's been understanding the last few weeks.
Oh, thanks, Graham. That's good to hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone else actually who would like to share, like, anything they've noticed or felt, or any bits of inspiration for others.
For me, the way it kind of feels, it's kind of a bit weird really, but like, because I cry a lot, I think that's my release. But it feels like, when you're about to sneeze, and it's just like coming, you just have to the more you think about the sneeze, the more you won't sneeze. Like that, you just have to like feel it and lean into it almost.
Yeah.
Kind of how it feels. Is that like normal?
Totally, yeah, that's a lovely description. No, and when I had in my video, my friend Holly shared. For her, it was like letting her body do what it had always wanted to do, and she had to know it. You know, it's like, oh, this is what my body wants to do. Different to just yoga or stretching, because you know, there's a bit more support in it and a bit more guidance and kind of signposting. And so then it's like, okay, no, but if you just stretch this bit, that will really open up that part. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye, guys. Thanks, Jade.
Still feels like it's a bit of magic there. I'm sure there's logic and science behind it, but there still seems to be a magic.
Yeah, I agree. It is for me too. You know,
Yeah, it's really
you have to have a story as to why it works, but ultimately it's just magic.
Yeah, it just works.
Yeah.
Trust it, go ahead.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Really interesting.
Thank you.
Oh, and I might put this video on YouTube just for other patients.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not in it, but your voices might be. I assume that's okay. Yeah, great. Thanks, guys.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.